Okay, we're going to do an experiment. I was at a thrift store and for $1 I got a Mr. Beer refill. These things are normally about $15 each. It comes with the yeast, it comes with the cleanser, and the beer itself. I checked and it actually expired in February this year, so it's a little bit out of code. But the fact is, we're going to go ahead and make it. But what's missing here is boosters. So I did some research on the internet, and I can use brown sugar and honey or cornstarch in lieu of boosters. So we're going to walk through and make this batch together, and we'll see how it tastes when it's done. For $1, it's completely worth a try, and I'm sure it's going to give me a buzz. It's just I'm not sure what the taste will exactly be like. So we'll go from there. So first step is to get the keg and everything assembled and sanitized. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, we have filled the keg with a bunch of water as well as a sanitizer, and we're going to drop the measuring thing in all together. We're going to put the can over there, and then we're also going to put the spoon that I'm using on the stove. I've also put a bunch of the sanitized water in a pan. So this, based on the instructions, will ensure that we get a good sanitation. So we're going to wait about 10 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and swish this stuff around to make sure that all areas and surfaces are covered. Okay, we're about ready to fill the keg up with water, and then we're going to set up the pot to boil and create the wort. Just want to make a note, I did actually sanitize the glass jar I'll be using to take from the tap, and I also put some on a plate, and I've been kind of recycling and moving these around just to make sure that all the surfaces remain wet with the sanitizer. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, per the instructions, we have filled the keg to the 4-quart line with water. Okay, that's after emptying out the sanitation. And then we have 4 cups of water that we are going to start boiling. And right here is my assistant, Aubrey. She's overseeing to make sure that I do everything fine. Now, as I don't have the booster mix, which didn't come with my kit, based on the information I have on the internet, I'm using 1 cup of brown sugar and honey, which should give an interesting flavor and should be equivalent. They say don't use 100% granulated sugar or pure white sugar, so this will be the first time I've made this using that. So the next step is actually to go ahead and start mixing this in, which I will do so, and then bring it to a boil. After such time, it's going to go into the keg, and we're going to add the yeast and go from there. Actually, we're going to add the can of mix as well. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, my mix of water, honey, and brown sugar has come to a boil. The next step is to put the HME mix, I'll turn this down, into what I just created, and this is now going to be called wort. Now I'm going to go ahead and scrape probably this out, so I may not be able to do it all with the camera here. I'm going to set this down. Actually, most of it did come out. I'm going to go ahead and stir it and mix it. Okay. Okay. And looking here, we got enough of that out of there to where I'm satisfied. Okay. I'll be right back, and we're going to dump this into the keg. Okay, so here's the wort, and we're going to go ahead and put this in the keg. I'm going to hold the camera here, and hopefully I don't make any major spills. Okay, so that's in. And now the next step is to fill this with additional water till it gets to the next level, which I believe it brings it into the 8.5 quart mark in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put cold water in so that it's at 8.5. I'll be right back. Okay, I have filled the keg to the 8.5 quart mark. The wort has been in and it says to shake vigorously, which is what we're doing, to stir vigorously. So I'll do this for a little bit, and then we're going to put the yeast on, and I believe it's called pitching the yeast. We're just going to put it on there for 5 minutes. So we're going to take this little packet and we're just going to sprinkle it and not mix it. So I'm going to sprinkle this on top in here and not mix it for 5 minutes. You will see the pitched yeast. Again, I just open the packet, you sprinkle it in, but you don't actually stir it or do anything to disturb it. We're going to wait about 5 minutes. And then the next step is to vigorously stir this and really shake this up. Okay, 5 minutes has elapsed. The yeast has been pitched. Now you're going to aggressively stir the heck out of this, which is what I'm doing now. All my utensils have been on sterilized plates and such. I'm going to probably set this stirrer down on the counter in just a minute, which will be the final resting spot in the last stir that I make. So the beer is now ready to go to the resting spot, which will be in my basement. Okay? It's going to take about 14 days between 68 and 76 degrees. So that's done. Okay, this will sit for 2 weeks. I put a little note to myself up here that it'll be complete September 1st. Then we will bottle. And I have a thermometer here. This is 69.3, the middle one here. It's around 68 to 70 degrees in my basement constant. So I'm going to pull the thermometer away, but I just figured I'd put it here just to check and see what we looked at. So this will be here for a little bit, and we will check up on this along the way. 2 weeks have elapsed, and the fermentation should be complete. So I brought this upstairs. It's been downstairs in the dark for a couple weeks now, 2 weeks. And if we take a look under the hood here, not sure we're going to see too much, but I did see a bunch of stuff that's stirred up in here between bringing it upstairs and such. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill each of these 8 bottles, and then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar to each, and then we're going to shake them, and then we're going to let them sit for another 2 weeks, and then they're going to condition for 1 to 2 weeks after that. So I'll be back in a second. This is the longest part right now. So each one of these bottles has 1 teaspoon of sugar for carbonation, and you have to fill each of these bottles up, and it's a very slow running spigot. Interesting to note that I had cleaned these bottles last time prior to storing them, and I sealed the caps off and I smelled them and did not smell any beer or anything stale, so I'm not doing a pre-rinse to these bottles, so hopefully that doesn't mess it up, but this is how I've done it in the past. So this one's approaching the neck. I finished putting in the sugar and also taking the fermented beer from the kegs into each bottle. So each one of these, and I have to correct myself because I think in the previous video I said 1 teaspoon. It's actually 2.5 for these 1 liter bottles. So we've put in 2.5 teaspoons of granulated sugar, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of toss these around here and make sure that they get mixed up. Okay, and these are all, probably can't see too much, but they're filled pretty much to the top, as high as I could, but also giving a little bit of play, a little bit of room. There's one right there you can see. Okay, now you'll notice that one of these has an X on the cap. Okay, Every time I make a batch, I always do one beer. I do something fun. I put something in, or I break the rules or do something differently. Well, this one I actually just use brown sugar to ferment. So it probably won't taste really any different, but I just figured I'd use brown sugar instead of regular sugar. So we'll see if that one tastes better when everything is said and done. So I'm going to go ahead and shake these, and I'm going to put them down in my basement for an additional 2 weeks to carbonate. Okay, it's about 71 degrees now in my basement, and right here this is going to carbonate for 2 weeks. So you'll see I revised my date to be September 15th. All these bottles have been shaken pretty hard with 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. So they will sit down here, and then in 2 weeks I will then condition them, which for me is actually just putting them in the fridge, and I will probably drink my first one 7 to 10 days after that. One thing I also wanted to mention is that I did tap myself about a 1 ounce sample of this prior to carbonation right from the keg, and it's a pale ale and it tasted good. So when I've made these in the past, I've sometimes been able to kind of tell if it's been an off batch or if it's going to be a good one or not, but this one will actually be good because it actually has a really good taste to it. So now it just needs to kind of, as they say, condition and actually carbonate. So we'll be back in a couple weeks, everyone. Okay, today is September 15th, and my West Coast Pale Ale should be done carbonating. So these 8 bottles have been here. Now conditioning, which is my understanding is just kind of an ambiguous term on waiting after its carbonation until drinking. Conditioning can be 1 or 2 weeks too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait probably 1 week. And so what I do is I condition my beers in the refrigerator. That's how I've always done it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. I'll make a little bit of room here, and we'll be back in about 1 more week, and we'll crack one of these open and we'll see how it is with the brown sugar and honey substitute for booster. Okay, here's the final product after it's been conditioned. Let's go ahead and open it up and pour it. And let's give it a taste. Not bad. A little bit different. Little bit different. Maybe even has a little bit of a cidery taste to it, but I'm pleased. Hope you found the video enjoyable.